Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and this video is dedicated to giving you a review of this thing, the M5 Stuart Tier 4 American light tank. Now you don't often see reviews go up from, anyone really, that concentrates on the lower tier tanks with a couple of exceptions, but and that's due in no small part to the fact that generally speaking the lower tier tanks, you don't need that much XP to grind your way through them. And so you can argue there's not that much point doing a long review on a tank that no one's really going to play that much, or very few people are going to play that much. But I'm planning to do reviews on low tier tanks that are, for whatever reason, interesting in my opinion, or that for whatever reason take a long time to grind through. So we'll get back to that in a moment. So what do you get with the M5 Stuart? Well, you get 350 odd health, 340 in this case, which is kind of typical for tier 4. You get a pretty decent power to weight ratio, a specific power of 23 horsepower per ton, which is fairly good. You don't get any armour. I mean, this is a tier 4 light tank, don't expect armour. View range is 370, which isn't bad, and a signal range of 615. So a couple of things to concentrate on here. Firstly, this is a tier 4 light tank that does get scout matchmaking. That means this poor little bugger's going to see tier 8 games. If you see tier 8 games, you are very much relegated to the role of scout. You are not going to be doing much in the way of damage. And this is a problem with kind of all the tier 4 light tanks, all the tier 4 scouts. Their view range, 370, is alright, but you can be in the same game as a Pershing, tier 8 American medium tank with a 400 meter view range. So your view range doesn't really outstrip those tanks that you're supposed to be scouting for, or supposed to be scouting out, trying to find the locations of. And that means that in order to effectively scout with one of these little things, realistically you need to either A, be a good active scout, or B, get in a bush, get some binoculars and, just spot things without moving, spot passively. And if push comes to shove, most of the time you don't have a gun to really do anything, which can be frustrating. So let's just quickly talk about the gun on this thing, because that's one of the more interesting things about the tank. So you have a choice of 3 guns. This is the stock gun. It's a tier 2 20mm autocannon. The fact that it has 30 penetration and does 12 damage per shot should tell you everything you need to know about this gun. You do not want to be using this gun on a tier 4 tank, even if it didn't get scout matchmaking. You do not want to be using this gun. And you never have to use this gun, because you will have this gun from the M3 Stuart, which is a tier below it. Now this gun is okay on the M3, on the M5 Stuart at tier 4. Even in a tier 4 game, this gun is looking decidedly ropey. It's a tier 3 gun, and this thing gets scout matchmaking, so once again, realistically, you don't want to be using this gun. That leaves you with one realistic gun. It's still a tier 3 gun, but it's a howitzer. This is basically the gun that you get on the T-18, tier 2 tank destroyer, but you also get exactly this gun on the M2 medium at tier 3. It's not the best gun in the world, but its main ammo type is high explosive, and if you fire high explosive at people, you can still get damage on them even if they've got very, very thick armor. You can track people, do module damage, whatever, and so you can still have a role to play with this gun. If you want, you can load heat ammo, which, while it doesn't have amazing penetration at 91 in this instance, and the damage goes down to 110, it might give you the opportunity to shoot some lower tier tanks, or possibly get some flanking shots or rear shots on some higher tier machines. So it's an interesting choice. But perhaps the most interesting thing about this gun is that it is a howitzer, but it gets a rate of fire of 14.63, which is very nice. And sometimes you can find that if you're facing up against some more lightly armoured targets, and I'm thinking here in particular of some of the second line of German tank destroyers, you know, like the Nashorn for instance, or if you find yourself up against Hellcats, this HE round can penetrate them and suddenly you're doing 175 damage with a reload time of something like 3 or 4 seconds. And all of a sudden, if you find that sort of target, the DPM out of this thing is terrifying, considering it's a tier 4, so this is a really interesting choice, and is my gun of choice, and it looks like this stubby little thing. So most of the time, you know, you're going to try and want to use the speed and mobility of this machine to get around the map. Interesting point of note, this is not quite as agile as the Chinese Stuart, the bought from the Americans, the M5A1 Stuart, and it gets a different type of gun. One thing to note, this tank is open-topped, so HE rounds can absolutely wreck it, but you know, in a lot of the games you're in, one shot, maybe two if you're lucky, is going to be enough to seal your fate anyway. So, having said that, what would I suggest for equipment? Well, frankly, this is predominantly a scout tank, and if I'm honest, most people are probably not going to keep this thing, but what equipment would I take? You could take a toolbox if you wanted, especially if you're not planning to keep this tank. Binos are not a bad idea, camo net's not a bad idea, what else have you got? Improved vents isn't a terrible idea, spore liner's a complete waste of everybody's time, ammo rack, waste of time. You could go for the enhanced suspension, mainly because it adds durability to your suspension, and it also reduces hull damage caused by suspension damage during impact. So if you accidentally jump off a ridge somewhere and damage your tank, that damage will be lessened, and this might actually help keep you alive. It keeps you moving, which is the lifeblood of a light tank. As said, binos are an option. Coated optics would also be an option. They allow you to keep moving, but I think really binocular telescopes are the better choice for this. Enhanced gun lane drive you could do, but I don't really think it's worth it. The howitzer has a good aim time anyway, and you're probably not going to be shooting all that much. I take a toolbox, binos and camo net because I'm not planning to keep this thing anyway. What about crew skills? Well, it's a light scout tank. You really want 6th sense on your commander, and I would say camo on everybody else. So let's talk briefly about the grind on this thing. What is it like? So it's on this line. So you go through the M2. Okay, we have the T1 Cunningham at tier 1. Yeah, why not? M2 light tank at tier 2. Doesn't take particularly long to grind through, and is actually quite a fun little machine with an interesting assortment of different guns to choose, and you know, I kind of recommend it. It's good fun. M3 Stuart at tier 3. This is it's an alright tank. I've actually got a video up in which I get my mastery badge in this thing. This can see tier 5 games, of course, in which it's a bit lackluster. But if you get it into a tier 3 game, this can be a right little monster with armour that will bounce shots. I actually found this quite a fun little tank to play. And from it, if you want, you can unlock the Stuart, but you can also unlock the T82 and branch down into the tank destroyer line if you want. Now the M5 Stuart. Well, as I say, you'll already have these two guns from previous tanks, so you'll just need to unlock the turret and then the howitzer. Although, I mean, you can free XP some of these modules and it won't cost you a huge amount of experience to do so. The top engine is available on the M3 Stuart, as well as a bunch of tank destroyers, so you will probably already have the top engine unlocked. So your grind is basically going to be getting the suspension, the radio, the turret and the howitzer. You take the order of your choice. I would prioritise the suspension for a bit of more mobility, and probably, I was going to say get the radio last because it's not that important, but having said that, I mean, this is a light tank, so you're probably going to be scouting, so you are actually going to want a half decent radio, and the stock radio is very, very poor. So actually, I don't know. I think my suggested route would be get the suspension first for the increased mobility, then get the turret for the increased view range, because the view range on the stock turret is quite bad. But also because that would allow you to get the howitzer, which makes you a lot more competitive in lower tier games, and then get the radio. And I would use this gun. I wouldn't use the autocannon at all, ever, because it sucks. Now, grinding out where you can go with this tank. So you've got two options. If you are interested in the American auto-loading line, then grind out the M7. This will take you... Sorry, I have no idea why I'm looking at that like a complete muppet. This is... I have absolutely no idea how much this is. It was something like... It's about 20 odd. Like 15k experience. It doesn't take too much effort to unlock the M7. And then you can go down the American auto-loading line. Good lord, I'm getting tongue-tied. But the reason I'm doing a review of this is because this is potentially actually quite a long grind. Because you can also unlock the Chaffee, Tier 5 American light tank, which takes basically 56,000 XP to unlock, which for a Tier 5 tank is unheard of. Now the Chaffee is not an easy tank to play with, but the reason I went down the Stuart line, got the Stuart, is because I want the Chaffee. There's a rumour that all light tanks are going to be rebalanced sometime soon, and if that goes the way that the artillery rebalancing did, that will probably mean they lose scout matchmaking, but things happen to them. It remains to be seen exactly what those things are. But my point is, this is potentially a very long grind to get the Chaffee, and you can see I'm still not there. So that's why I'm doing a review of it. And also it will give you an idea of what playing Tier 4 scout tanks is like, and it can be quite a painful experience. But I've heard the Chaffee's quite good fun, and it looks good fun, so I want it. So that's the grind. I'm not going to talk about the armour because it's worthless, woeful. You will just get penetrated by almost every single shot that comes anywhere near you, so I'm not going to bother with that. So let's just skip straight to some gameplay. Okay, here's the first game. This is a Tier 4 game, and it is a regular game on Erlenberg. You can see that our team has a fail platoon. The T2 Light apparently gets into Tier 4 games. Who knew? The T18, well, it shouldn't really be in this game, but it can kind of hold its own. The Light 6C, having it in this game is just horrific. That thing struggles to penetrate a lot of Tier 2s. Anyway, I'm just going to say from the off, this game is a horrific loss. So let's not concentrate on whether it's going to be a win or not, you know, spoiler out of the way. Just consider how we do, regardless. So we are top tier, huzzah. And I'm going to go over to this side of the map, down to sort of the valley along the 0 line. And you can see this thing's pretty quick. I mean, we get there way ahead of anybody else. We're doing just under 60 kph, and I think the speed limit on this is about 58. So, you know, we're doing alright. We're going fast enough. I'm just seeing if we can spot anything. Oh, Covenanter. Oh, Panzer 1C. And we go for a cheeky shot, but it misses. But we don't get shot ourselves. Now, to be fair to them, our fail platoon are made up entirely of Tier 2s. So I get the impression, because I wasn't aware the T2 Light doesn't get regular matchmaking, and certainly the Vickers Light 6C gets preferential matchmaking, but never mind. We're 1-3 down already, by the way, if you were paying attention. And so, to be fair, I can kind of understand if they weren't aware that the Light, T2 Light, gets really funky matchmaking. We're 1-5 down. So, first shot is a penetrating hit on a Panzer 1C, and you can see, Tier 4 tank would just take off most of his health. Screw you. Someone's trying to kill me. Cruiser 4's taking a pounding. 1-6 down. And I'm trying to do what damage I can. One good feature about this tank actually is it gets very, very good gun depression. Which is nice. And a gun mantle that covers most of the front of the turret, although most of the time it really doesn't make any difference. So, Covenanter, how are you today? Get one shot into him. Pull back. Reload. Unfortunately you can't see the reload counter on patch 8.11 replays, which is kind of irritating, but there we go, them's the brakes. And boom, there we go, 159 penetrating hit with the high explosive shells to kill the Covenanter. I don't bother loading heat on this thing. I'm just happy with HE. So there's an Electo in the background. Fantastic. We're 4-7 down. Got our first kill, and we've done a respectable amount of damage. In fact, we've done more damage than we have health, so you know, that's not too bad. So we're just trying to see what we can see over here, and oh, you can see the other flank has just collapsed. They all rushed to like E2 and just died. Never mind. 5-8, however, is not irreparable. 5-9, but I've already told you what the result is. It's pretty ghastly. I know there's an Electo back there, so I'm a little bit hesitant just to rush out, because an Electo can be a very dangerous little machine and has an excellent view range. And someone's capturing our base. Oh, Christ. I'm thinking about going back right now, but someone gets a reset in. There's that Electo. I really want that Electo dead. There's a Hetzer moving in on our base. He's probably going to nail our artillery. And hopefully our guys will move forward a bit into more useful positions. So, Kiho, how are you today? Bang! Oh yeah, you're Japanese, you have rubbish armour, don't you? And there we go. Set him on fire, 2 shots and he's dead. To be honest, the fire was nice, but it wasn't strictly speaking necessary. I'd have 2 shot at him even without the fire. Oh, there we go. Someone's mown down a load of our team. Artillery defends themselves, which is nice, but it's 8-12. What can you do? Just trying to have a think. I'm trying to protect the rear of this Hetzer because he's probably our best chance at protecting the base. I judge at the time anyway. Now he's in a clan, does that mean he's not a bad player? Well, I'll leave you to be the judge of that. And maybe it's in situations like that you could argue that XPM would be a good thing to have, but I run without mods. So I'm thinking what to do, and I'll screw it, we're just going to barrel through this house, and there we go. Not a penetrating hit, but it took out his track, so I can't really complain too much. That was definitely a penetrating hit. The poor Electo doesn't get much in the way of armour, and he's dead, kill number 3. But they nail our birch gun. So there's just the 2 of us left, and they're capping quite forcibly. So we've got to get over there to reset the cap. I haven't actually taken any damage yet. I've been a bit opportunistic and just derped people to death. And you can see, as I say, I've got my mastery game up on YouTube, and you can see they're doing a horrific amount of damage with this howitzer. And in the right situation, this is not actually a bad gun. Now, I'm about to make a bit of a mistake. I should have either stopped sooner or kept going. This is a terrible idea. I get a lucky bounce there, but I'm just sitting out in the open. There's a T40 in the background who kills my driver. I'm on 17 health from that T40 and I'm dead just before I take my next shot. Now that kind of sucks. I didn't get the reset, the Hetzer didn't get the reset, they win by cap. Our Hetzer survives, but we probably wouldn't have won anyway. Having said that, if you look at the post-game results in a sec, you'll see that we did almost 1,000 damage, which in a tier 4 game is not too shabby, especially when you consider we have 340 health. So we basically did 3 times our health in damage in a tier 4 game. And we didn't take any actual HP damage until right at the end, so that was quite nice. Game number 2 is slightly less friendly matchmaking. Here's game number 2. As you can see, this is pretty much the worst matchmaking you're ever going to see in this tank. There isn't even a tier 4 on the opposite team. The lowest tier tank they have is an ELC AMX, so I'm the only tier 4 in this game. And we even have another scout, in the form of a leopard. and this is painful matchmaking, but you know, we're going to see what we can do. So I'm going to go into my standard scouty bush on this map, spawning this side. This is Arctic region, I should probably say, and this bush right here is pretty good for passive scouting in. Now I am turning around so that my rear is facing the enemies, which might seem a bit of an odd move, but my armour is not going to deflect their shots regardless of what angle they hit me from, and this way I can run away a bit faster. Get my binoculars up and do some spotting. Now this is not going to be an absolutely stunning game. This is just going to be kind of, you know, a typical sort of game you can expect when you are vaguely competent, trying to do well for your team, but you're in a tier 8 game. And you can see I'm spotting these people and often requesting fire on them, which is usually bound to the T key if anyone's interested, but I'm not opening fire myself because that would reveal my position. Funnily enough, a gun going off draws people's attention to it. Who'd have thought? I will have a video up at some point talking about the game's spotting mechanics. Now, at the moment, am I spotting these guys? Is that E25? Possibly a bit of both, but I don't think that E25 is long for this world. Now, one very useful thing when you're a scout. At the top of your sniper view, right here, is something telling you how far away whatever the tank you currently have targeted is. You can see he's 120 meters and he's still not spotted me. The auto detection distance is 50 meters. So, and I don't have Sixth Sense on this crew, not yet. I'm training it, but I don't have it 100% yet. So it's not active. So this is very much a game of nerves. If I see his turrets start pointing towards me, I am getting the hell out of there, because that probably means I've been spotted. Oh, I just took a shot. Run, 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 run. Now I am kind of lucky, I suppose, that I didn't just die in one shot there. But I am running the hell away. The game is 2-2. They've lost a Borsig and an SU. We've lost, 2-3. A Lerva, E25 and a Leopard. Now I am just trying to stay alive. That's all I'm trying to do right now. When you're in this sort of tank, there's often kind of not much pressure on you, which is quite nice. Ooh, just even the score up. Because no one expects wondrous things from a tier 4 light tank in a tier 8 game. They just don't expect you to do a great deal much. So anything that you can do is a benefit to your team. I really shouldn't be knocking over as many trees as I am. And in a way that's kind of liberating, actually. That you don't have the pressure on you of being a top tier heavy tank, say. You don't have that expectation on your shoulders that you're supposed to push a flank, and you're supposed to take the hits, you're supposed to be in the thick of the fighting. No one's expecting you to be in the thick of the fighting. Now, you do often get players who have a go at you because they just don't understand what scouting is. Obviously they don't do it themselves, or if they do try it, they don't do a very good job of it. But, you know, them's the breaks. Don't let it bother you. So we have just completely relocated to the other flank, and you know, we're fast enough to do that in a scout tank. You'd hope that you're fast enough to do that, otherwise it's going to be depressing. Now what I was thinking is I was trying to go through the gap at sort of D2, E2, but there's a couple of tanks inconveniently sitting in it, and I'm not confident about going around the top, sort of around the B2 region, because I think there's going to be tanks there as well. And ooh, I get a hit on a Hellcat. A Hellcat's one of those machines that if you hit it right, and we didn't there, we only did about 50 odd damage, but if you hit a Hellcat right, you can do full damage with your HE shells, and that's like 170 straight to a tier 6 tank, which is hilarious. So we're just going to go back to the flank we were originally on. I should really have some waiting music going on. I'm going to stop that now. Woo! Okay, Type 62. That's no long a tank that's no longer available for sale. It's sometimes available for doing well in competitions. A Chinese Tier 7 premium light tank. It's basically inferior to the WZ-131 in kind of every respect, but you know, it's a premium tank. What else do you expect? Okay, so we're 7-9 down. And frankly, after my initial spotting, I haven't really done much. I've just put a shot onto a Hellcat that did about 50 damage. But that Type 62 was coming around for cheeky shots into the rear of our heavy tanks here. My presence meant that he was spotted. The fact that he was spotted meant that we had a tank destroyer who would have been able to shoot him, and more to the point, it meant that he didn't want to hang around. He wanted to run away. And so a lot of what driving a very low tier tank in a game like this is about is making yourself useful, even if that is not a use that's going to be directly rewarded with XP and credits. So, you know, making the Type 62 run away and not shoot our heavy tanks in the back does not directly get rewarded with XP and credits, but it does increase our chances of winning, which will be rewarded with XP and credits. And there's a lot of things in this game where you can do something that does not directly get you a bonus, but it helps your team, it helps you win, and, you know, winning's in your interest. It's in your whole team's interests, obviously. So the scores are currently 8-9, but bearing in mind, one of the machines that we have on my team is me. Make that 8-10. Oh dear. And their Type 62 Tier 7 light tank just nailed an opponent. I'm kind of prevaricating and dithering and not sure what to do here, and whoa, there's that Type 62 again. So I'm seeing what he's doing. And if he's going to go after our heavy tanks, I'm going to see if I can get cheeky shots into him. Oh, doesn't work. If he wanted to, he could just turn around and kill me. If he chased me down, he could kill me, but he doesn't seem interested in that. I mean, he's a light tank driver, and he doesn't seem to be bad. He's just trying to stay alive, which is not a stupid idea. And so my presence here, even though it doesn't appear to be doing much, is actually protecting the rears of the two heavy tanks in sort of F9, which is nice. No one had destroyed that, so I will. Now it's 10-10. Everything's even. Ooh. Except, they have a Tier 7 light tank, we have me, Tier 4 light tank, but we have 3 Tier 8s and 1 Tier 7. Apart from the light tanks, they have 2 Tier 8s and 2 Tier 7s. Eesh. And it depends upon the individual health and etc. of each of the tanks. So, now, I'm thinking about going through the middle there. Oh, and apparently their Type 62 really hates me. Probably because I keep spotting him, getting in his way, and stopping him from shooting our heavy tanks in the back. I ask him why, but you know, whatever. So, hello, 87 just got nailed. There's a T25AT, sorry, T25/2. I get a hit on him for 77. Oh, someone kills him. Fair enough. Onwards. Now it's suddenly 12-10. That Type 62 is still alive. Now my plan of going around here was originally to nip round here, go up onto the little kind of ledge at G4, where there's going to be a tank destroyer almost inevitably sitting, and try and shoot him. But it does occur to me that if I go around there on my own, there's a very good chance that he's just going to be able to turn around and black me in the face, or that he's going to have a friend who's going to black me in the backside. So instead of doing that, I wait for some support to arrive. And support is with me. I'm still being very cautious because I am very, very low health. Frankly, even if I wasn't very low health, both the ISU and the Rheinmetall Borza can just one-shot me, regardless of how much health I'm on. Type 62 would need me on slightly lower health, and oh dear, Type 62 is behind our tanks. And oh, good lord, there's the ISU. Haven't found the Borsig yet. But I'm really nervous about the ISU. If I go around that corner, he's going to kill me. So instead, I double back. Now I'm about to make a mistake. Oh, that Type 62 is not having a good time. I think the ISU doesn't have a shot on me. Apparently he does. Oh, but he wasted a BL-10 shot on me, so whatever. And the T-32 nails their Type 62. And I'm telling the ISU there, you know, didn't think you had a shot, dude. Nicely done. Now, unfortunately, I do provide this Rheinmetall Borsig a little bit of cover, which is slightly suboptimal, but we should win this now, hopefully. And so we're just trying to get our tanks who are on comparatively low health. We're just trying to get our tanks to wait for the IS-3, who is currently sitting in sort of, that's not sitting, he's in H7, he's moving up though. Try and wait for him to come around so that we can attack them from both sides at once. Gives us a much better chance of winning. And to give them credit, these tanks do exactly that. Now, the IS-3 and the T-34 are platooned, so I'm not surprised that the T-34 waited. The T-32 is in a platoon, but not with anyone who's still alive. The T-25, not in a platoon at all. It was nice to see that everybody did exactly that. They just hung back, waited for the IS-3 to come up, and then attacked. And then it was like, go, 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 go! Gank them! Kill them! And this Borsig is taking a right pounding. And you can see, forward they come. Attacking them from both sides at once. A nice coordinated pincer. This is something you don't see very often in random games, and it's really So, what do I think about this tank overall? Well, it's not a bad tank. That sounds really enthusiastic, doesn't it? It's a pretty typical Tier 4 scout tank. Tier 4 light tank with scout matchmaking. It's not a bad machine. It's, you know, reasonably fast. It's reasonably agile. And the gun is okay. But all of the Tier 4 light tanks are a bit of a letdown. The looks is a lot of fun, and I would say this tank is not quite as good fun as the looks. The Panzer II looks, the German light tank. But having said that, this does get a nice little howitzer that is good fun to use, but it's very unreliable. At the end of the day, very few people are going to keep this tank because it gets horrific matchmaking, and it's just missing something. It's not the most fun tank in the world to play. I'm certainly not going to keep it. Having said that, if you're interested in either the American auto-loading line or the Chaffee, well, you're going to have to go through this tank. So, and unlocking the Chaffee, for instance, takes enough XP that you're probably not just going to want to free XP through it. So you're probably going to end up playing it. And, you know, it's not that painful to do. I had some fun doing it. Or I am having some fun doing it. But not every game is brilliant. Overall, how am I doing in this tank overall? Let's just quickly find out. Where are we? M5 Stuart. I actually have a 57% win rate in this thing. 1.07 destruction ratio, which isn't particularly good. 0.87 damage ratio, which is also not particularly good. Almost 2 vehicles spotted per game on average. My stats don't look amazing, but that's the thing with Tier 4 light tank matchmaking. A lot of the games you get into, even if it's only like a Tier 6 game, you will struggle to do a lot other than just spotting people. And this doesn't have a category for spotting damage. So there we go. Would I recommend this tank? No, not really. I think there are other far more fun... I mean, people tend to avoid Tier 4 anyway for a tank to keep. because it gets horrible matchmaking, but I think there are far more fun tier 4 tanks that you will want to keep, preferably that don't get scout matchmaking. So it's not terrible, but you're probably not going to keep it. Most people probably aren't going to keep it, and I wouldn't recommend you keep it. That's my thoughts. Anyway, I hope you guys found it vaguely informative and or enjoyable. If you did, please feel free to subscribe to my channel and or catch some other of my videos. And I wish you happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.